Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday service of Now Creations. It's always a joy more than anything else to remind you that the greatest energy of all life is at the very center of your own being, at the very center of your heart space, your consciousness. May you be in contact with this energy throughout the day and allow the Spirit, the Holy Spirit of all life, to truly reign within you for the day. You should have received by now also our monthly thoughts for June. Very happy to say that we've had responses already. I hope you'll enjoy the June thoughts. Please view them today. You would have received them by way of email. If you're able to join us tonight, be very happy to have you for What is Light Body from 7 to 8:30. Let's begin. My dear friends, it continues to be a joy to receive your responses on our teachings of establishing an Ascension vocabulary. What continues to be so important is that you clearly understand that we are not just changing words, but more importantly, we are changing our lives and how we live in the world. Especially your comments from last Sunday's teaching have been quite perceptive. You do realize that you really are a spiritual being, that you really are a conscious, eternal soul spirit. And as such, we are now allowing the perfection of our creation to move well beyond the limitations of a fearful, limited, third-dimensional personality self-identity. Such an understanding has taken time and study on your part, and I applaud you for all the work that you have put in. It is precisely this fifth-dimensional understanding of yourself that is at the heart of today's teaching, entitled An Ascension Vocabulary, Part 5, More Perfection, Less Limitation. I will offer you the three essential qualities of how you might understand your true self as the fifth-dimensional soul spirit that you really are, and if time permits, to introduce the 10th vocabulary change. Let's begin with what I consider to be the three fundamental qualities of identifying yourself as an eternal, conscious soul spirit, so far beyond simply your personality self. The first foundational quality is to remember your ancestry, not ancestry.com, but your true ancestry, that you really are, we all are, spiritual beings who are having this human experience. While we have addressed this truth several times in the past, there are a couple of things that continue to need our attention. The first one is that oftentimes people still get lost in their personality self, which is so very easy to do. As so many of you have said on numerous occasions, life just gets in the way. Learning how to navigate the human condition is rather tricky. On the one hand, we are guided to bring heaven to earth in our daily circumstances, and yet not to be overwhelmed by our daily circumstances, not to be overwhelmed by relationships, finances, and worldly living. For those of you who are now ready to ascend, for those of you who have chosen to be on the spiritual path in this lifetime of yours, and realizing that some of our closest friends and family members are not on this path, you realize the importance of doing your 7 daily spiritual practices, Even a few days, even a few days of not doing them makes you spiritually lazy and inclined to get lost again, to be overwhelmed again. And then you start to think, well, you know what you need to know, and you'll be just fine until you get lost again. To better assist you, if you are honoring your spiritual ancestry of being a child of God, let me now suggest the following two things that will be helpful to enable you to maintain your spiritual identity. The first is whether or not you have said the following statement or something similar to it. Here's the statement. I am rising to a fifth dimensional understanding of life. This statement, I am rising to a fifth dimensional understanding of life, helps you to clarify the following point. It's easy to confuse nice third dimensional people and third dimensional things with being on a spiritual path of the fifth dimension. Let me repeat this. It's very easy to confuse doing nice third dimensional things with nice third dimensional people with being on a spiritual path of the fifth dimension. The clear difference is that while you continue to do the third dimensional nice things, you also, and this is the difference, you also have a clear fifth dimensional daily spiritual practice. It is this solid fifth dimensional daily spiritual practice that is often missing with some very nice people who are very kind in the third dimension, but who do not have an established spiritual practice. That's the difference. You are not only nice and kind, but you also have an established fifth dimensional daily spiritual practice. This lack of an established spiritual practice becomes very evident when one in the third dimensional level has the tendency to see some things that are not quite so nice, at least from their perspective. You have a tendency to see everything all-inclusively from the fifth dimension, because the fifth dimension, your dimension, is now established in oneness and love for everyone, and it recognizes all others as children of the oneness. Such an all-inclusive viewpoint is not held by many third dimensionally kind people who are very kind to their family and friends, but not quite so kind to others, and are often very critical, especially with those with whom they disagree. Although this difference is difficult to put into words, I think that you clearly understand what I mean. Many people, very nice, are kind to a limit, to a certain extent, whereas your spiritual ancestry is all-inclusive. Your spiritual ancestry is all-inclusive and simply needs to be supported by your daily spiritual practices, or you too will slip into the trap of a limited kindness. The second foundational quality of acknowledging yourself as an eternal soul spirit. The second quality also has a familiarity in its wording. So many times people say something like, "Oh, I know that, I know that," and then continue to live their lives as though they did not know that. The second fundamental phrase, which clearly in a sense enables us to raise our familiarity to the fifth dimension, is the phrase that I am creating the reality of my life. Oh, I know that. Oh, I know that, Vince. Well, do you? Do you? I will accept the fact that you know it if you know and practice the following things. First, do you know and practice? Do you know and practice that you as a soul spirit has been created as an extension of the God Spirit, and that wherever you are in life, you are consciously bringing the God Spirit into your life situations. Second, with this in mind, do you consciously know and practice that you are not just a light in the world, that you consciously and practice that you are what God is doing? You are a Christed presence in the world, that you consciously bring your spirituality to each situation in your daily living. Third, do you know in practice that before you do something, that you check in with spirit and then focus on the best way that you can bring this light into your life? Fourth, and most of all, are you able to release the habits of your past that have kept you in lower energy? This ability of yours to be able to create your future, is the real basis of creating your reality from now on, that you're no longer troubled by your past. It's this realization that you don't have to do things the way that you've simply been accustomed to doing them. Do you realize that? That you don't always have to do what you've always done, and that perhaps you can be done with what you have always done. And especially that you are done with not only your personal past, you're done with that, but you're also done for what other people are expecting of you. You're done with other people's expectations of you. The words of Martin Luther King echo very importantly for each one of us. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God, I'm free at last from my past. Again, I encourage you to rise to your fifth dimensional freedom. And as you do so, realize how you can assist others to move beyond their paths and beyond simply the expectations of others. In this process of fifth dimensional freedom and freely creating your future from your soul spirit, you will be happier and more content than you've ever been. You will be kinder and nicer and more loving than ever. And you will continue to be a joy to be around in this process. In this process, not only are you that joy to be around, but then you become the inspiration to so many others. The last comment on creating your future is the most important. Take a moment, settle, calmly, be attentive. Here's the question. What is it that you are now freely creating as your future? What is it that you are now freely creating as your future? I say it again. What is it that you are now freely going forward? Only you can answer this question, but realize that you can answer it. The answer will not come out of the third dimension. It will not come out of that limited thinking about where you can fit in to some other reality, but rather it will come forth from your fifth dimensional readiness to take the time to come to know what your path will be from now on. That you will be creating your future consciously from spirit from now on. Understand that a fifth dimensional freedom is not simply a freedom from your past, but it's really a freedom for. It's really a freedom for the new path that is guided by the perfection of your soul's spirit from the very core of yourself. Understand that you are creating everything from now on consciously. With these first two qualities of soul perfection in mind, remembering your true spiritual ancestry and freely creating your fifth dimensional future, we are now ready to entertain the third quality. The third quality is a direct result of the presence of the perfection of the God Spirit within you. It's a direct result of the perfection of the God Spirit within you. But also, it is a quality that is often misunderstood from its third dimensional usage. And it especially calls to mind the old third dimensional phrase, nobody is perfect. Also, this third quality needs to be clearly understood. It can be easily not only misunderstood, but misapplied and result in one thinking that perhaps they are a spiritual failure and thus shamefully cowering away again. The third quality of the perfection of your soul spirit that truly raises you beyond the limitation of your third dimensional personality self is invulnerability. invulnerability. Yet even when you say those words, invulnerability, one automatically seems to go to that thought, well, no one is invulnerable. We need to look at this better. Is this not the point? When you say to yourself, well, no one is invulnerable, what have you done? Have you not just returned to the limitations of your third dimensional personality self? You just returned, went back to the third dimensional personality self. This is so easy to do. We simply return to our old third dimensional way of thinking with thoughts such as, well, my feelings are easily hurt when someone says or does something that I don't like. Or, I have a lot of thoughts that make me angry and judgmental. Or, the big one, what about my body? I often get the flu or a cold, and especially, well, what happens to my body when I'm ready to pass? How can you say that I am invulnerable? I think that your realistic questions have made my point. You are vulnerable. You are vulnerable. You are invincible. When you simply see yourself from the limitations of your third dimensional personality self, that's when you're vulnerable. When you have dropped back into that third dimension and have begun to identify yourself again with your limited personality self, that's when you're vulnerable. All of the aforementioned problems are what make you vulnerable from the lower third dimensional perspective. The obvious basis of invulnerability is to come to know yourself from the fifth dimensional level of a conscious, eternal soul spirit. Let me repeat this. The obvious basis of invulnerability is to come to know yourself from the conscious, fifth dimensional soul spirit basis. I am going to repeat it a third time. The obvious basis of invulnerability is to come to know yourself. To come to know yourself from the fifth dimensional level of a conscious, eternal soul spirit. Viewing ourselves as such takes time, it takes study, and it takes practice. You know this, and you are continuing to do so. And I want you to know that the goal of Now Creations is to continue to help each other and to view life from this fifth dimensional perspective of the perfection of your conscious, eternal soul spirit, not from the vulnerability of your limited third dimensional personality self. Let me now give you the secret of doing so and how we can bring this energy to the forefront of our consciousness. And then I'll address those three aforementioned situations. First, the secret. The secret of maintaining your fifth dimensional spiritual love. The secret is to be conscious of it all the time. to be conscious of it all the time. Now, of course, you have a right to ask, well, how can you be conscious of this all the time? Doesn't life get in the way? The answer is you have to practice when it doesn't count. It's too late where you're in the midst. You have to practice being conscious when it doesn't count, so that when it does count, you will not lose your conscious attention. You will not let life get in the way, but rather, you will treat the situations of your life from the fifth dimensional consciousness, from the perfection of your invulnerable soul spirit. Listen closely. You clearly know how to practice your daily program outlined in our 7 daily spiritual practices of now creations. And as you do them, you are building up for yourself. As you do them, you are building up for yourself a reservoir of spiritual awareness that will enable you to meet these 3 aforesaid circumstances. Let's recall them. First, someone says something you don't like or seems to hurt you. Now, in your 5th dimensional soul spirit, you are invulnerable because you realize that such comments or actions are simply coming from a trapped, limited, 3rd dimensional personality self, and they are not true. Secondly, to your judgmental and angry thoughts about others from your 5th dimensional invulnerable self, you realize that anyone who is making such negative responses to life that are causing you to be judgmental is simply having their own life experience. And instead of judging them or being angry with them, you now realize the wisdom of A Course in Miracles when it says that such people are simply crying out for love and union. Then you respond appropriately. Third, now concerning bodily health. Without getting worried or upset, you realize that it is the 3rd dimensional physical body that is undergoing the illness, and that it is your 3rd dimensional body that you will move beyond because you realize that, well, earth life is simply an interim experience. You are not an eternal body. You're an eternal soul. That earth life is not a retirement center. That earth life is simply a sojourn, a stopover on your 5th dimensional travels of being an eternal soul spirit. And that you realize that when your body is ill, your soul spirit is not. When your body is ill, your soul spirit is not. It continues to be invulnerable. And you realize that when your body is exhausted and ready to pass, your soul spirit is not exhausted, but it too will be ready to pass because it is invulnerable. As you can plainly see, we all need to have a more accurate view of life on earth that does not focus on your limited third-dimensional personality self, but rather focuses on your fifth dimensional invulnerable soul spirit, which is simply having an experience of birth and death in the third dimension. You are perfectly safe. You are perfectly safe in your soul spirit, for you are invulnerably connected to your source. This teaching is what we must continue to understand and advocate in our creations and share with others when the time is appropriate, as it is right now. One last thought on your invulnerability. For many years, the sustaining thought for me has been, the power within me is greater than any problem that I will ever face. The power within me is greater than any problem I will ever face. The secret, however, is to know that the power that is within you is the invulnerable perfection of your fifth dimensional, conscious, eternal soul spirit, not the little you of your limited personality self. The more we understand this, the more we work on this, the more it becomes so very apparent. In conclusion, next week we will focus on the 10th vocabulary change. This week's message of the three qualities of your perfect fifth dimensional soul spirit needs more attention than just this first listening. Please do not say, "Oh, I know them, Vince. I know them." Our spiritual ancestry, that we are always creating our reality, that we are invulnerable as soul spirits. Again, please do not say you know them until you really practice them. And yes, of course, we will continue to advance in this knowledge together. Let me now take you into meditation, and what a joy it is to do so. Just nice, easy breathing. Nice, easy breathing. Oh, it's fun every once in a while to look at Ancestry.com in TV ads and think, oh my, am I related here or there? Or perhaps maybe you've done some of the work in that area. But please remember, the true ancestry is not from the limited personality self. Your true ancestry is the eternal conscious God Spirit. There was a time when you perhaps might have said, yeah, I know that. And then you go on living from your third dimensional limited personality self. I think most of you have stopped. You've stopped doing that. You've stopped doing that. You understand that you really are a conscious spiritual being using the vehicle of your third dimensional personality self to manifest. I applaud you for not just getting it right in your minds, but getting it right in your daily living. The evidence has been the quality of your living so much kinder, loving, inclusive, and yet solid and strong because you know who you are. Your spiritual foundation is firmly, consciously right there and is no longer shaken. Creating your own reality, creating your own reality can be very confusing at times. Some pretty smart people think they're creating their reality. Pretty smart people think they're creating reality from the external situations that have been created either by them or for them, that come from outside of themselves. Their life situations, relationships, standard of living, finances. These are the things that pretty well determine how some pretty smart people are going to be creating. They're creating from out there, trapped, imprisoned by what's out there. In a sense, they have left themselves and they live from out there. They just live from out there. Oh, yes, I'm creating my reality. You are from out there. Never dawning on you that what is really out there is creating your reality. The alternative is to first look within and understand the conscious direction of what is most important to you from within. What is most important to you from within, and allowing it to be your direction. Not only will it raise you from within as you do so, but you will also raise everything out there from what is going on within you. This is clearly evident in the way so many of you are now living your life. You start from the inside and express externally. In vulnerability, it does not change overnight. You don't go from being vulnerable to invulnerable overnight. It's a practice. It's a practice. It's a spiritual practice. It demands that you know your ancestry. All of your vulnerability is coming from a third dimensional, limited personality. You have to understand this. Look at your life. Where are you vulnerable? It's all coming out of your head and outside of you. It takes practice when it doesn't count. Building up your spiritual repository. Knowing yourself as spirit. The more you know yourself as spirit and practice accordingly, the less you put yourself into vulnerable situations. Eventually, you too will come to the understanding that the power within you is greater than any problem you will ever face. You are invulnerable at your core, but you have to live your core to experience it. You are not invulnerable from the third dimension. You are from the fifth. You've got to think it through yourself and come to that conclusion, which I think will be blatantly obvious as you do so. So as we go forth through our day-to-day, just know this wonderful power within you. Just feel that presence within you. It's what you've always wanted and what you're now pursuing with full understanding. Full understanding. It's not surprising that people love to have you around because of the energy you bring. You know your ancestry. You're creating your reality. You are invulnerable in the Holy Spirit of love. And in this threefold energy, I invite you to gently move back to your breath. Nice, easy breathing. Happy? Gosh, who would not be happy when you know your ancestry and your creative ability and the fact that you're invulnerable? And with that, let me invite you to breathe your eyes open. I am an eternal being of light and love. Thus, only good can come to me, and only good can come from me. And we are eternal beings of light and love. Thus, only good can come to us, and only good can come from us. Namaste.